Wife Material Podcast. How to build a husband. Of course, I have some critics of my podcast, which I appreciate because, I want some feedback from both sides. But of course, your critics, your haters, right? Your non-fans, which tend to ironically be your fans because they're the ones who are, giving you feedback. Even if it's not positive, it's still feedback nonetheless. They love to point out that, I just talk about the idea of a woman being a wife and then that's it. Even though it's like, well, it's called Wife Material Podcast for a reason. Right? It's the idea of being a wife. Right? No point in having the skills if you're not going to use it, right? What's the point of learning how to be a wife if you're not going to be one? So, obviously, I'm on topic, which is being a wife. And then there's the fact that it's like, well, what about the husbands? Do you even talk about, what a man needs to do to be a husband and stuff like that? Well, ironically, I have a husband material podcast for that. Still working on more content for that. I do have some ideas, of course. But the thing is that on average, most guys already husband material. They already meet a lot of the criteria that women want in a man anyway, right? Because what makes a man is the same thing what makes him a husband, right? His financial capabilities, his physical capabilities, right? Social status, the fact that he's really good at navigating the current world, and whenever the world changes, he adapts. You want to be with a man like that. You don't want to be with a man who, the harder life gets, the harder life is for him. Because if life is hard for him, then that's also hard for you. He needs to be able to navigate through life, right? You have to think of life like a video game. You rather be with a character, husband, right? A man who's really good at the game, not bad at it. Makes no sense to be with somebody who's bad at the game and who would, the harder the game gets, the less they do, the less they try to play the game, right? And instead of trying to get it good at the game, they just rather just do nothing. So you want a man who's a top level player of life, right? Who's always trying to level himself up, his resources, his kingdom, whatever you want to call it, house, right? The empire. That's what you want, right? You want the high scoring player. You want the best of the best. That's what, as a woman, you should be looking for, right? The best of the best. Right? These are the types of qualities that you want and should want in a husband. Him being smart, being wise. Now, a lot of times that comes with age, being smart and wise. So typically you'll end up with an older guy, right? Older man, because age tends to come with intelligence and wisdom. Could you get a young guy who's smart and wise? Yeah, that is possible. But that just means he has to have lived a very active lifestyle to get all that knowledge and wisdom. Because knowledge and wisdom, right, comes from experience, right? From trying things, failing at it, learning from your failures, and then, learning what not to do. That way, you make better decisions in life. And you want to be with a man that makes a lot of good decisions. You don't want to be with a man who makes a lot of bad decisions, right? If a man makes a lot of bad decisions, well, don't be surprised that the relationship doesn't work out too well because he has a habit of making bad decisions. You want a guy who's good at solving problems, not making them or just pointing them out like, oh, this is a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem, and then that's it, and never have a solution. And that goes with anybody. That applies to females as well, right? Don't just point out problems, have a solution for it. Now, guys are typically logical, therefore, they would, have solutions to problems. And that, as a wife, it's very important to listen to the solutions, right? Even if you feel that the solution might not solve the problem, you still should hear it out. You still should hear it. There's a possibility that it it might turn out that it actually is a good solution, or at least it's better than nothing. A solution is better than no solution, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So, but of course, you want a good solution to a problem. So it does help when somebody you're with, your husband, right, is, experienced enough in life to be able to solve multiple problems. Because the idea is it's two heads are better than one. So of course you should be able to solve problems, right? And let's say you're pretty good at solving a lot of problems, but you don't want a guy who's not as good. You want him to be at your level of problem solving capabilities or higher. By him having higher problem solving capabilities, that's good, because when you combine both of your capabilities, that's more mathematically. That's more capabilities of solving problems. There's a higher chance of solving problems. But at the same time, with him being the head of the household, being the leader, being the breadwinner and the yo man, right? You expect him to be really, really good at solving problems, especially if a lot of problems require physical capabilities or financial capabilities, or even social capabilities, right? You will want that. You want a man who has, other men that he can rely on for assistance on things. Like if furniture needs to be moved, he can go call upon his boys. They come through and things will get moved, right? If there's ever a life or death situation, he can call on the boys and the boys will come through, that kind of stuff. So, or maybe one of his friends just so happens to be a cop, and it's much easier to call his friend to come through than it is to call 911, right? That might be, he might live close by, that kind of stuff. So that's the importance of resources. You definitely want a man who has resources, because one, that benefits you, obviously. Secondarily, that benefits him because he has the resources. That he is capable of taking care of himself if need be, so that way you don't have to take care of him as much, right? You don't want to be in a 100% in a mother position, right? Because there's females that tend to complain about that, like, oh, I'm not his mom, I'm not his maid, this, that, and third. But it's like, correct, you're not those things, but what you are, if you're his wife, you're his wife, which means you do have the responsibility of being his support. You're supposed to support him, right? It's ironic that most modern women nowadays talk about the whole idea of partnership, but don't understand that even in a quote-unquote partnership scenario, like an equal partner scenario, you still got to do stuff. And since it's going to be an equal partner scenario, that means you need to be able to do equally what he can do. And because he can lift more than you, he's more likely taller than you, because you chose him to be taller and stronger, probably smarter, right? More financially capable than you. For you to be like, oh, we're equal. Like, no, you chose someone who's not your equal. You chose someone who's your superior when it comes to comparison. When you're comparing y'all capabilities, y'all stats, you chose the guy with the most stats. He has more stats than you. So it'd be weird to treat him like his stats are lower than yours, like his capabilities are less than yours, when he clearly not, right? It's like Lois Lane, gets with Superman, but then she treats Superman like he's the weak one. Like, what? Like, she's the superwoman. Like, no, you're Lois Lane. You are you. He is him. He's Superman. You chose him because he's amazing. For you to look at him like he's beneath you and you're the super one in the relationship, that makes no sense. You deliberately chose Superman. And since you chose Superman, you have to treat him as such. That's how that works. That's the same thing with being a wife. When you choose your husband, right, when you agree to marry somebody, it's because he is your Superman, right? He is the perfect guy for you. It makes no sense to just marry a guy just because he asked you to, right? You can say no. As soon as you say yes, it's because you already vetted him. You already made sure that he's the one that you will, support, help, love, and all the other good things that comes with being in a relationship. You accept the fact that he's going to be the leader. and you're going to follow his lead. You know, again, if you're listening to this, it's more likely because you're interested in being in that position, being in the wife position, right? It's a position, it's a role, it's a title that comes with responsibility. So many women nowadays that I notice on the internet love the idea of having the title but not the responsibilities, not putting in the work to deserve the title. They just like it because it sounds nice. It sounds nice to be someone's wife and then that's it. It's like, no. You need to be more than that, because right now, because in that situation, that just makes you sound like a trophy wife, but a self-imposed trophy wife. Instead of your husband being like, okay, you don't got to do anything, I just need you just to look pretty and that's it, and do nothing, then you're just a trophy wife. You're just there for aesthetics. If that's what you're looking for, then make sure you get a husband that wants a trophy wife, if that's what you want. But most guys who want a wife, who worked hard to be in a position where he wants to share his life with somebody and share his resources and stuff like that, he wants a woman that is going to be a woman. It's going to be a wife. It's going to do wifely things. And one of the responsibilities of being a wife is not stay at that position. He expects you to be promoted someday to mother, right? And then grandmother at someday, right? So, you know, the whole being a wife is a long-term thing. It's like if you decided to join the military and you signed a lifelong contract, it'd be weird. After 2 years, you're like, you know what, I want to quit. The military's like, but you signed on for a lifetime. You're obligated to serve your full contract, right? And that's the whole point. Like when you choose to be a wife, that's a path you're choosing for the rest of your life. It is not let me give it a try and see how it works out. Like, no. You're supposed to already know if that's the path you want, and then when you choose it and be part of it, you're supposed to continue with it, right? It's unfortunate that divorce is something that's introduced into marriages, and that's more of a modern day concept, because that never used to be a thing. There will be a time where instead of divorce, right? If the husband and wife just didn't want to be around each other anymore, for whatever reasons, they fell out of love, whatever, they stayed married, right? They just were like, all right, well, I'm gonna live in this house and you can go live in one of our other houses that we own until the day we die, and then leave it at that, right? They'll just spend less time with one another. But what they wouldn't do is just end the marriage, right? And all the benefits that comes from being married and stuff like that, right? All the legal benefits and stuff, and then just be like, okay, well, I'm gonna restart my life with someone else. And it's like, well, good luck with that idea, but that's not logical, because it's not that different from quitting getting a job that's a career, not just a summer job, but like a career, and then halfway through quit and then expect to start a new career. And it's like, it's gonna be difficult because so many things comes with that. And the thing is like, being a wife, even though I refer to it like as the concept, and the same thing with being a husband, it's like the concept of like business, like a job. It is, but it's something that has to do with life and relationship, right? It's something bigger than a job. Yes, a job you can go quit whenever you want. That's why they have it set up where you can quit, right? Just like you can be fired from a job, but a marriage is supposed to be a lifetime agreement, a lifetime thing. You're supposed to be prepared for it. That's part of why you're supposed to be raised to be a wife. Just like guys raised to be husbands, right? Or at least taught.
This is L3502.
That's why, husband learns, his responsibilities, the importance of, maintaining his finances, right? Maintaining, his physical capabilities, try not to get hurt, injured, because if he's hurt and injured, that reduces his capabilities to protect his female, his wife, right, and his children, right, wife and kids. So that's why it's important for him to try not to get hurt, especially from working, right? And then his wife are also supposed to support him in that aspect. Make sure that he's eating healthy, so that way he's in good healthy shape. It is a symbiotic relationship. It's a teamwork thing, right? You're supposed to help him be able to function to do the things he does, and vice versa, right? And the thing about my podcast is that I'm just trying to share, the traditional concept, the traditional ideas of how things used to be, basically giving a history lesson. And it's up to you, to try to apply this to modern day times. If y'all want to change some things up and add stuff to what, makes a husband, that's fine. Just understand that, most females do not know what makes a man and what is a man, because they usually don't deal with men as often as they used to, because there was a time there was more men, as in they were taught to be men, so they knew how to be men. There's less of that now, so there's very few men left, because of the whole constant feminism thing and constantly trying to make guys act more like females and less like men. So of course there's less men, so that's why it's not a surprise when you have females out here complaining that ain't no good man, ain't all men ain't shit, but not realizing that that comes from these guys not being raised to be men. They're being raised to be feminine, which is a totally different type of men, right? Feminine men, right? So that's not good. And this is what it looks like when you have feminine men. Women end up complaining about it. End up, saying there aren't no good men. There aren't no good men in abundance. There are still some, of course, but not in abundance. Of course, there's not a lot of good men because, feminism has neutered being a man. And that's where the whole toxic masculinity bullshit comes in. Saying that being a man is bad. So of course you're going to have less good men. Do you have good guys, good, males out there, good boys, right? Yeah, there's good boys out there, good guys out there. But ironically, they're the ones that get ignored, and it's the bad boys, the fuck boys, the bad men are the ones that women are chasing after and complaining about them. Ain't that ironic? But hopefully you have chosen wisely, and you're making sure that your husband is smart, right? A protector, a provider of, obviously protection, resources, experience, knowledge, teach you a thing or two. Obviously he will want you to be good at whatever you do. So of course he's going to, teach you things. You would definitely want him to be a problem solver, right? the jokingness of women want men to be mind readers. I mean, if he's good at understanding body language, understanding female nature, right, human nature and stuff like that. He's good at putting things together. Seeing patterns. That's part of being a problem solver, is seeing patterns and then coming up with a solution based off of the pattern. Then yes, it makes it easier for him to be able to read your mind, so to speak. But also, whenever he asks you a question, try to be honest. One of the interesting things is that most women say one thing, do the opposite. They tend to be hypocrites. So they'll say something that sounds good, but they don't do that thing. They do the opposite of what they say they do or won't do. And that creates, the situation where it's hard for a guy, even an average guy, to be able to tell, what a woman's thinking, because they hear what you say, but they see what you do, and it doesn't match up. See, with a guy, when he says he ain't gonna do shit, well, his actions prove that he ain't gonna do shit, right? Or if he says, You know, all I want is sex, and that's it. And that's all you see is that he puts effort when it comes to that, but doesn't put effort in anything else. Well, he was true to his word. Since most females, I notice, have a habit of saying one thing and doing the opposite, for them, they think it's strange when a guy doesn't do more, even though the guy never said he was going to do more. Here he said what he was going to do, and then he did it. But since you're so used to being extra, I have to say, ladies, most females tend to be extra, that for y'all, it is surprising when a guy doesn't do extra. Because y'all used to doing extra. Y'all used to seeing each other as females doing extra. You know, doing more than what y'all say you're going to do. So then that's why you expect guys to be the same. You expect guys to, you know, to do more than what they say. You know. Just like a guy can say, you know, I'm going to work hard, make a lot of money, and, you know, we'll live a good life. And that's, you know, pretty reasonable. But then you expect that he was going to become a billionaire or something. It's like, well, he didn't say he was going to be a billionaire. He just said he was going to work hard, make a lot of money, and have a good life. A good life can just be $100K a year or $200K a year. It doesn't have to be $1 billion a year or some shit like that, right? So that's the difference. Is you'll expect more, even though he said less. So he said less, but you expect more. Like he says, oh, I'm gonna take you, you know, to a restaurant for a date, and that's all he said. But you expect it to be like some big extravagant thing. You expect a limo to pull up and take y'all to a 5-star restaurant. Salt Bay's gonna be there and all this extra stuff. Maybe even propose, you know, to you, you know, marriage and stuff. All this extra stuff you expect, when he never said any of that. All he said was he's gonna take you to a restaurant on a date. And it probably just gonna be as simple as going to the restaurant, ordering some food, talking a little bit, eating. Once the meal's over, then y'all go home, and that's it. And that was the date. Because he didn't specify how long it was going to be. He didn't specify any extra details. If when y'all go to the restaurant, he's going to have like a band pull up and play some musical instruments and serenade you and stuff like that. And flowers is going to be brought to you. And like, and you're going to get gifts. Like, he ain't say all that extra shit. So why would you expect extra shit, right? Just some bit of logic right there for you ladies. But anyway, you want him to be a good problem solver, right? You want him to be a master negotiator. It's always a good idea. I mean, I tend to do this. I try to find compromises. I try to compromise with my ladies as much as possible, because I know they can be unreasonable a lot of times, since they're more emotional than logical. So I can't, you know, use logic all the time. I can use logic to understand they're going to be illogical and you know, make decisions based off of feelings over facts, but I take calculated risks is what I'm saying. So I figure out, okay, what situation, like what compromise can I make where I'm okay with it and she'll be, you know, happy with it. So I kind of measure it that way, like a scale. How much more on her side can I put that will make her happy, but not too much to a point where my side has way less. You know, I want. It's obviously going to be a little bit of an unbalance. I mean, there's the rare occasion where it'll be equal, but it's more likely it's going to tilt in her favor, right? So it's going to be more on her side than mine. But as long as, you know, she's happy and I'm happy, that's a win-win for me. That's equal, even if it was unequal that led to that, you know, technical equality. So basically, the best way to put it is I use the term technical equality. As long as technically her and me are equal, then that's good enough for me. Because I'm always willing to take less, as long as as long as the outcome is positive, right? Because her being happy equals my happiness. That's why when it's a problem when I see out there for guys, when they're in a situation where they do a lot for their woman, but then they're sad, they're unhappy. And it's like, well, that's the thing. You didn't make sure that you compromised in a way that guaranteed your own happiness. Don't sacrifice your happiness just because you want to make her happy. Because more likely, you overpaid, right? You overcompensated. You gave her too much, which left you with no happiness. but she's just going to squander that extra happiness. The extra happiness you could have had, you gave it to her, and then she's just going to squander it because now she has more than she needed. She probably only needed a little bit of happiness, not a lot, but you overdosed her with it, right? You OD'd her with happiness, and now, because you got to remember that happiness is going to wear off, so you want to save as much of it as possible so that we can, give her a little dose of happiness here and there to, keep her happy. Don't give her, the full dosage or overdose her with happiness, because once that wears off, all it's going to be left is issues. So you have to understand that, because most women's decisions are made emotionally. You gotta make sure that you balance out the emotion. And that's where it goes to the whole a guy being good at controlling, emotional control, having control of his own emotions, but also control of her emotions. Not in the, manipulative, controlling type of way that some females will think. Obviously, it's in the, making sure that you're happy, but not too happy, making sure you're not too sad, Just put her in the levels that's good enough to make her, to keep her satisfied. But so that's the type of guy you want, a guy who can negotiate, can work with you, even when you're hard to work with. But not saying that a woman should be toxic, not saying that a woman should be, this okay if it's like, oh, I'm too hard to handle, I'm very combative and this, that, and third, and, it's not good to be those things. Try not to be those things, obviously. Make it easier for him to be able to do what he needs to do to keep you, to make you happy, keep you happy. That is one really big contradicting thing to do, is when your husband or a man that you're in a relationship tries to make you happy, but then you will try to undermine him trying and just get angrier, or make him feel like he's wasting his time trying to make you happy, and then that in turn obviously backfires, right? It just, because sometimes it feels like when a guy's trying to make a woman happy, she deliberately tries to get more happiness, right? Tries to get him to do more, so then she'll deliberately act angrier, hoping that he'll do extra, he'll do the most, right? He'll do more because she's being greedy. So it becomes like a negotiating tactic. He's trying to make her happy, but she's like, nope, not good enough. So then he's like, okay, well, I'll increase it. I'm gonna give you 50% happiness. Nope, not good enough. Okay, how about 60% happiness? And, she's gonna keep trying to drag it on and try to get it as much as she can. And it's like, well, that's very selfish. Should be grateful that at least he's trying, right? That he's trying to, make you happy. Because clearly, if you're not happy, there's a reason for it. So as a problem solver, he will want to solve that problem. But if you're going to make it hard for him to solve it, then, well, obviously the problem is you, and you need to fix that. Don't bring him problems that you don't want him to solve, right? That includes yourself. So don't bring yourself as a problem and then be mad that he's trying to solve it, and then you're just making it hard for him to solve the problem. Then don't bring him any problems if you don't want him to fix it. Then a guy who has purpose, right, beyond him just existing, you want him to have life. You want him to have a life, right? You want him to have things that brings him joy, hobbies and stuff like that, a career, a purpose in life, just other than just existing, especially if, y'all want to live a really nice life. You want a guy who's, who has a purpose, a guy who's just existing. Is going to be happy with, with enough money for an apartment and ramen noodles and, and Netflix, and that's it. And all he wants to do is chill. You know what I mean? If that's what you want, hey, you do you. But I'm just saying, if you want more, then make sure you get a guy who does that, who has a lifestyle that, that tends to be more than just good enough or complacent or just existing. He's the main character of his story as opposed to just being a background character. And you want to be part of the life of a main, you want to be a main character, you want to be with a main character, obviously, right? You want to be one of the main cast of his story. You don't want to be a side character with a side character. Good genetics, right? Especially if you're going to go from wife to mother, motherhood, you'll want him to have good genetics, right? Just like you're bringing good genetics, right? I'm expecting that you'll be bringing good genetics to the relationship. So you're good genetics with his good genetics, y'all make good babies, right? Beautiful babies and stuff. So him having good genetics, being physically strong is obviously good genetics, especially if he has the body type of a ectomorph, right? I think that's the body type, ectomorph, because there's mesomorph, endomorph, and then ectomorph. If I'm right, I'm a endomorph, which means I can easily gain weight, but I could also easily lose it, right? So I can, it's easier for me to get in shape, but also just as easy for me to get out of shape. So I have that level of flexibility. While a mesomorph is, a skinny guy that, has trouble gaining weight and putting on muscles. And a ectomorph, if I'm right, is the opposite. Easy to get, easy to be big, but not easy to get small. But, he would more likely be muscular. Like, he'll be naturally muscular, he'll be naturally strong. So an ectomorph body type will be, type of guy will be the kind of guy you'll want, for the whole good genetics thing. I mean, endomorph ain't bad either because of the whole variety, right? The option, the ability to get strong or not, right? But, you always want to lean towards the, holding on to physical strength longer. So an ectomorph would be better. Even though I'm an endomorph, I'm not going to be like, hey, pick an endomorph, body type. Like, no, pick ectomorph. They stay stronger longer. That's what she said. So physically strong, mentally strong, right? Prefer to be with a man that's not mentally unstable, right? Doesn't have a lot of mental health issues or any at all. You want him to be smart and a problem solver, right? You want him to have his mind right, because that will transfer over to the children. You want him to be emotionally strong, as in, not no emotional intelligence, that's not a real thing, but emotionally strong where he, does have emotions, but he controls them. And, when he does express emotions, it's usually at the right time, I mean, if he was to cry, it would be in a logical moment, like something major happened, and it makes sense that he cried, right? Like the birth of his children or something like that, or at his wedding. But any other time, crying over spilled milk would just be ridiculous. I mean, even something like, oh, I lost my job. Yeah, well, that sucked, but there's no point in crying over that. Right? Getting emotional over losing that job. It's like, well, it happens. Hopefully you have a backup plan. Hopefully you save money, so you're good for a while, and this, that, and that. Like, you definitely want to get, especially when it comes to like marriage, you want to be with a guy who doesn't spend money like crazy, right? He's not wasteful with money. He's good with money. He stacks his money. He invests his money. That's the most common way you're going to have a lot of money, is investing. So you definitely want a guy like that, because he's, regardless whether he has a job or not, financially you'll be good. So you want to make sure that he's financially strong, which will come with being, mentally strong, right? Tall, good looking, right? Want him to have good genetics, blonde hair, blue eyes, as an example, if that's what you're into. his ethnicity, right? If he's Latino, black, white, Asian, whatever, right? These factors need to be taken into account when it comes to, kids. That's why genetics are important. And that's why I'm not against the idea if you want a guy who's tall, because, being tall has many benefits. But hey, if you like short, nothing against that. Short's not bad. It just, short has different benefits than being tall. It just depends what you prefer. But tall tends to be the most popular trait. Tall and strong. 6 feet strong is super strong. Whatever that song was. But yeah, that's just the basic stuff. Obviously he could be more than that. You'll want more than that. That's up to you, because every guy is going to be different. But on average, most of what I've said so far is the basic template, basic standard of of a husband. Notice I didn't mention much about like sex or anything like that. Didn't say too much about emotions, other than he should control them. You want a man who has good emotional control, right? You want him to be good with money. You want him to have money. You want him to be strong, so he can protect you, protect the children, protect himself, because you don't want him, out here literally getting beat up by the world, right? You don't want him out here, being mistreated, manhandled, and stuff like that. You want a warrior, right? You want a strong man, and you want the kids to be strong, and you want, you gotta remember the world itself is dangerous, right? Despite the fact we have advanced technology and stuff like that, and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, right? We're still on a planet, and we still have to do things to survive. The planet is still dangerous. Animals still exist, right? Animals that will tear you up still exist, right? Not all humans are, good humans. So you still got to protect yourself against, bad people in general, right? Don't assume just because someone's a female that they're not dangerous. They can be dangerous. Just because a child is a child doesn't mean the child can't be dangerous, and the list goes on and on, right? And accidents happen, You might be walking on a bridge and the bridge falls apart, like shit happens, right? You might, obviously it's a good idea not to do stuff like smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol. These are things I haven't mentioned, but it's a good idea not to have these types of habits, right? Don't damage your body, right? I do talk about being healthy, exercise, being fit, right? Let me add these things. If like I said, how to build a husband, right? If you want to improve him, right, then you need to make sure you put in the effort, right? You want him to be healthier, then make sure he eats healthy, right? By making sure you're responsible for what he eats. That way he is eating healthy. Especially if you notice he doesn't make good health choices, you be the one that makes the good health choices. Well, preferably you want to be with a guy that does eat healthy, does exercise and whatnot. But if you're if you have no problem, if you're instead of getting a guy who's like essentially perfect, right, but no one's really perfect, then get a guy who's good enough and then build them up. And that's the whole how to build a husband, right? That's the whole idea. It's like, because most of what I said is like what makes him good as a husband, as a basic template, so that we can build a guy up to that. So if you find a good guy, right? The idea is to get a good guy that's good quality, has a lot of potential, and then all you just need is a lot of these, basically a lot of this cosmetic stuff, right? Him dressing nice, him, making more money, things like that he can do to improve, going to the gym and so forth. These things he can do after being with you, as opposed to like he already was doing it before he got with you. If you're the type of woman that when you got a relationship with him, you improved him, so he can be husband material, right? Then, one day you pop the question, now you're a husband and wife, and there you go. You build your husband, right? You build him to be a husband, and then you propose, that kind of stuff. Don't just accept him for who he is, how he is, right? And then expect him to marry you, and then complain that he's not improving on his own or whatnot, or he's not the one. It's like, but you had the ability to choose. You had plenty of time to make sure he was the one before saying yes to marriage, right? But anyway, if you want him to be in better shape, right, when he's already not, then you need to be responsible for him becoming, getting in shape, right? Eating healthy, going to the gym, or just, offering to go with him to the gym, or offering him, or inviting him to go with you to the gym, or get a home gym if he, makes the excuses of not leaving the house. I work and blah blah blah, and I'm tired and I want to go out. Then it's like, all right, then get a home gym and then work out. And if he doesn't seem to, there's so many things you can do. If he doesn't seem to feel motivated to work out, then get butt ass naked and start working out. Trust me, he'll want to work out. He'll want to be in that room working out with you in more ways than one. And just be creative. There's videos on YouTube that you can watch that can give you tips and tricks on how to make your man, your husband happy, right? Obviously you should definitely listen to videos from guys who are married, right, and get advice from them. They because one, you're getting the male perspective, as well as he's letting you know what his wife does and what works for him, and that might also work for you. Now granted, not everything applies to everybody, just like this podcast about building a husband might not apply to every guy, or to every woman that wants her husband to be a certain way. So you might have to tweak it, might change it up. Results may vary, but at least it gives you something to work with. It gives you an idea of what to expect from your husband, the things you could do to improve him. A lot of these things you might agree with, some of these things you might not agree with, to each their own. And hopefully this was helpful, which is the whole idea, is to be helpful, give some information for those ladies who want to be wives. And that's the end of the podcast.